What even is a second chance, honestly? Are they even real? Do they really exist? Life is like a tax audit. It friggin' sucks, and it's got one hell of a fetish for punishment. It can cut you down, burn you out, make you lose passion for the things you love, or at least the things that you thought you did. It's real bitter stuff, and it kind of makes you think, do I even deserve a second chance? Am I worth it? Can I make it work? Is it too late? Is a second chance truly in the cards for me?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm talking about the silly little pixel art indie game starring the non-binary cat protagonist kid. Yeah, that one.
OneShot is one of the two great RPG Maker indie games about a deeply layered protagonist and their relationship with a special light bulb, and I think that's pretty cool. It was an iconic work of art in the gaming space that's become instantly recognizable and left a great positive impact on the people who played it, but it didn't seem like that was always going to be the case. So here's the thing about the creative process, it is really, really fun. And that's honestly nowhere more obvious than with OneShot, a game that was never supposed to be a success, but because of the passion and the hard work of its creators, still became one anyway.
OneShot was initially made in just under 1 month in RPG Maker 2003 for the 2014 RPG Maker Indie Game Maker contest by the dynamic duo of Eliza Velasquez and Night Margin, which, yes, 1 is a mouthful and B is just absolutely bewildering considering how great this game and everything in it truly is. This world, these characters, the music, this eerie and sort of unsettling tone dreams and nightmares alike are made of, all of that was done in under 20-something days in RPG Maker, and that's just bat-nut insane.
Yeah, I'll get into what made OneShot so good a bit later, but I just want to clarify that original 2014 build, well, it definitely isn't as amazing as the modern version of the game, what with its updated visuals and added content and greatly improved third act. It's still really, really good on its own, to the extent that some players actually prefer it over the final release, and I think a lot of that comes down to the singular idea controlling every single thing at OneShot's core. The idea that forms everything OneShot is, the idea from which OneShot gets its namesake. That being that you only have one shot. Oh, so that's why it's called that. You've got to help guide this kid from one end of the world to the other, and if you quit along the way, if you close the game out to do something else, then that's it. You lost. You had your one shot and you blew it. And the same goes for the ending too.
You're given a decision, a choice, one that once you make it, you're stuck with forever. No take-backsies. You can't restart the game, you can't delete and re-download it, you can't go back to your old save file, nope, none of that. In this world, you don't get any shots of redemption. In this world, you don't get any do-overs. In this world, you don't get any second chances.
And following OneShot's initial release on June 30th, 2014, it finally came time for the Indie Game Maker contest results to be revealed, and while this may not be the most well-known or highly awaited game jam of the year, for the contestants, it was a really big deal, with over 800 games competing at a chance at the grand prize, $10,000 that they could use to flesh out and publish their game. And for small indie game devs, the outcome of this contest, it'd be nothing short of life-changing, and that, of course, held true for Eliza and Night Margin as well. And it all paid off on October 1st of that year when the jam's grand prize winner was revealed as Red Nova's Remnants of Isolation. Okay, well, OneShot didn't exactly win the grand prize here, but hey, there were still other categories available, like Best RPG? Nah, that was a win by Nivlax's antagonist. Alright, maybe second or third Best RPG? Nope. Nada. To be fair, I'm not entirely sure that OneShot even really counts as an RPG per se, even though it kinda is one, so maybe it picked up something in the non-RPG award category? Seriously, you know where I'm going with this. Of course it didn't win anything. OneShot went through that whole entire contest without nabbing a single solitary award. You know why? The game was disqualified. Apparently it used some unofficial modified version of RPG Maker 2003 that allowed the player to use Latin numerals if needed. It's really dumb it was disqualified for something like that, but I mean, whatever, I guess, and stuff, man. So to Eliza and Night Margin, that was it. The contest had ended, OneShot was completed, and they were done with it. The game had its one shot, and now it was all over. Or at least, that's what they thought. As it turned out, they would receive an offer from Dejika Games to finish OneShot for full publication, and if you're like most people out there and you don't know what Dejika Games is, let alone how to pronounce it, they're generally known for publishing RPG Maker games like this one. Well, usually ones very, Very different from this one, but I'm sure you catch my drift.
So yeah, after all of that, there was finally a secured future for this game, an expanded and fully fleshed out remake of that original 2014 build, an honest to goodness dollars to donuts second chance for OneShot.
They didn't just throw some shiny new sprites in and spake a new text font on like other freeware ports did. No. Eliza Velasquez and Night Margin saw this as a new opportunity with unlimited time in their hands. They weren't limited to just a month now, so the crew could finally mold OneShot into the full work of art they always wanted it to be. Like I said, a lot of people still prefer the 2014 version of the game for its darker tone, but I wholeheartedly disagree, and for several reasons. See, the 2016 remake just adds so much to the entire experience. It was rebuilt in RPG Maker XP with better looking sprites and more polished music, and most importantly, double the playtime with more fleshed out areas and an additional route to play, but I'll slay that goose a bit later. The 2016 version of OneShot also isn't the final take on the game, funnily enough, as in 2022, OneShot finally received a full console port in the form of OneShot World Machine Edition, which, have her bad takes here, but I kind of personally prefer it. Don't get me wrong, the 2016 remake is amazing, and it really flips immersion on its head since it actually interacts with your own computer. It's a true mind-bending and, for real, kind of scary experience, having to search through your personal files to find secrets or see the changes the game will inflict on your system. While the World Machine Edition just recreates an in-game version of a desktop, which is way less immersive and frankly way less cool, but is also the only way this game would ever work on actual consoles. However, you're also not limited to 4 directional movement in this version, and when it comes to gameplay, I just prefer not being locked to a grid. It all ultimately comes down to what you want or prefer in gaming. If you're more of a PC guy, the 2016 remake is for you. But if consoles are more up your alley, play the World Machine Edition. If you care more about the immersion and paranoia the game instills, 2016. And if you value the in-game gameplay more, World Machine. Both takes are awesome and provide different reasons to play them, so it can really go either way. For me though, I prefer the World Machine takes simply because I think the improved gameplay and having the game on console, which is something no one ever saw coming, is worth the sacrificed immersion of the 2016 game. Nevertheless, the console port's mere existence just shows that sometimes a second chance isn't enough. Sometimes you have to try at something time and time again to get it right. Just don't tell me that. What do you think? I actually listen to myself? Either way, this second go-around at OneShot was released to the public on December 8th, 2016 to widespread acclaim, and OneShot is always one of those games I could tell, even before I played it, yeah, this is just my thing, and there's a lot of reasons for that, I think. A lot of it comes down to its visual style and design, a lot of it its murky feel, and a lot of it its basic premise. The idea here is that you, the player, are, in a way, part of this bleak, surreal world. See, the inhabitants know you exist, and they revere you as their god, and your mission, on its surface, is to guide Niko, this innocent child plucked from their own world and forced unknowingly into this one to serve as its messiah, to restore the sun back to its pedestal, to save this world from decay. The game will also hide clues to progression in your personal files and whatnot, which is such a great form of engagement considering the meta-narrative at play here. Over the course of this journey, you, along with your young cat-like companion who, mind you, is not a cat, and if you accuse them of being one, they'll piss their pants and call you a slur, like a cat, will traverse this literally corrupted land and meet a laundry list of interesting characters and places. You become acquainted with the history of this crumbling, fading realm and the efforts scientists went through to try and preserve it after the sun went out. You come into contact with all these robots, some of them tamed and some of them not. What exactly that means, you're not quite sure. And all of that adds up to make you feel this deep urge, this need to help this world and save these people. But that's not as easy as it seems at first blush. You ultimately discover that the main antagonist here is the world itself, or at least the system that was built to try and replicate it. In a way, the antagonist is the game. It is the world machine as it's called, and it doesn't see a point in living. It needs to die. It wants to die. Because it knows there's something not right beneath the surface. It knows this world isn't what it's supposed to be, that something else is going on, but it never tells you what or why. And you're ultimately met with a choice, the hard one that's presented in this really excellent puzzle sequence, by the way, where you have to sneak your way back into the game after it tries to trick you into thinking you won so you'd leave. It's really, really great stuff, and maybe the definitive thing that the freeware version of OneShot really lacks. The build up to the decision you're forced into making, and all the ambiguity behind it, and how it perfectly encapsulates this game's whole atmosphere is really part of what makes it so great for me, and honestly the main thing that makes me say, don't even bother with the free version, just buy the full game. It is so worth it. But you learn that if you restore the sun and save the world, then Niko will remain trapped here forever, unable to return to their home, to their people, to their family, mediocrity, which is absolutely just devastating to hear. While your only other option is to smash the bulb and end this world and everyone in it, which would send Niko back to their village safely, this whole ordeal lingering in their mind only as a dream, as a distant memory. And you do know this world is off, that it doesn't seem to be worth saving, that it doesn't deserve a second chance, something the world machine and so many of its other inhabitants have told you directly. Unlike Niko, who's so full of life and has so much to live for, but indirectly killing all these good and interesting people you've met just to save Niko still doesn't feel right. It's a legitimately really tough decision to make, especially knowing that you only get one chance at this. And all of this works so well because of Niko, and that goes for the whole game here. Niko themselves is such a great character, man. They're definitely one of my favorite gaming protagonists by a landslide. And they're not even super complex or deep or anything, they're just a kid you want to see end up happy. Aside from the character design, which is just top of the line incredible, look at that. Niko develops a direct bond with the player by actually talking to them throughout the whole game, asking them questions, just saying funny little things. It feels like you're forming a legitimate friendship with this character, and that's great. For instance, most RPGs like this would use the voice of some passive narrator for flavor text, while this one's different. Niko describes things the way they see them. It's not some nameless, faceless voice coldly stating, "This is a table." No. Niko themselves will tell you, "Motherfucker, this shit is a fucking table," and that's important. Seeing Niko's dreams and their visions of returning home to their mother, or just hearing them talk about their childhood in their wheat field encircled village, fills you with so much desperation to try and get Niko home. And yet, that conflicts with your need to save this world. So the choice is Niko's and ultimately yours. What do you do? What do you pick? Who do you choose to save? Remember, this is the end. You can't have it both ways. If you decide to send Niko home, this world and the people residing in it, they don't get a second chance, and neither does Niko if you make the seemingly selfless choice of saving the world. There's nothing you can do now. You can't go back. You don't get any second chances. You don't get any do-overs. You only have one shot. Except once again, this game proves that notion dead wrong. On March 28th, 2017, OneShot received a free DLC update titled OneShot Solstice, which provided an entirely new route for Niko to take after the original ending, providing a second chance not just for OneShot and not just for Niko, but for the player as well. This obviously wasn't something the team just shoehorned on a few months after the game came out. I mean, looking at that original game, you can really tell just how dependent on Solstice the entire story is and how much it's set up all throughout, but in all honesty, I'm actually kind of glad it was a DLC update that wasn't a part of the game from launch, which yeah, I know sounds insane, but you really do need a while to sit on the choice you made in OneShot's original ending. It's so much better having time to process what just happened, what you just did, time to think about the vague, hidden nature of this game's world and the implications it truly has. So I think the mandatory passage of time here really makes this extra route work even more than it already does. A lot of people disliked the very idea of Solstice, saying, "Oh, well, isn't the point that you only have one shot? We made our choice and, well, we want to stick with it." And hey, you know what? That's fair. One thing I really like is that the game goes way out of its way to say, hey, if you were satisfied with how we closed things out, if you were satisfied with the sacrifice you had to make, if you were satisfied with your one shot, then don't feel like you have to keep going. Feel free to bow out now. Sometimes, not always, in reality it's shockingly rare, but every once in a while you get things exactly right the first time and you just don't need a second chance. And while that is true, OneShot as a whole is not in any way one of those instances, because this game definitely feels extremely incomplete without Solstice. Like, it still works and it's still really good, but there's so many loose ends and lore nubbins that you don't really get the full picture on without the context Solstice provides. Like, what is this world and what is its purpose? What are these glitchy squares consuming everything? What's the deal with that fox? Why is the world machine in the nihilistic state it's in? And maybe most of all, who exactly was this author everyone keeps raving about? And is there a way to get a better ending? This isn't just some slop ending thrown on at the last second to resolve a couple of plot holes and give the player a pointless happy ending. No. This, Solstice, is where the real game begins. This is the point where OneShot drops its act and pulls its shoddy, fragile curtain back all the way. That is, if there ever truly was one in the first place. It's here where it says, yeah, this is a game. That's the whole point. Nothing in this world, aside from Niko, who I guess in a way represents the player, was ever actually real. And for a while I was split on this. At first I felt like, okay, this might be a little heavy-handed, and it still kind of is to be fair. But I don't think that's in any way a bad thing, and it all really works. This isn't a game that throws its hands in the air and says, yeah, this is all fake, it's all a game, there, that's your plot twist. No. I mean, by the end of the first route, you've pretty much figured that out already, and if you haven't somehow, that honestly speaks way more about you than it does OneShot. Instead, it does a lot more than that, and goes to such great lengths to justify this game's existence. Over the course of the Solstice route, Niko learns that you, the de facto god of this world, are just some random bystander running it on game hardware and nothing much more. They learn that this game exists because its creator, the author guy, wanted to preserve his dying world by any means necessary, even if that's in the form of a game, of a story. And they learn that the world machine, the game itself, provides the base code for everything that happens in OneShot, that everything around them, that all their friends, all the choices they make, their personalities, they're all predetermined, they're lifeless husks. They're all nothing more than simple lines of code, and that's it. And Niko kinda has a huge crisis of faith in pretty much everything over this, in life, in the world around them, in their mission, and even in us. And can you blame them? Of course they do. They're just a kid. They didn't ask to be given this quest. They didn't ask to be trapped in this strange, scary place away from everyone and everything they've ever loved with no real way of getting back. They didn't ask to endure the horrors of this collapsing realm or to undergo this intense emotional strife. They didn't ask to bear the literal weight of the entire world on their tiny little shoulders. They didn't ask ever to be the Messiah, and yet they stick with it. They don't give up throughout that whole quest. They don't lose hope because they had us. They had the player, but now they see it was all for nothing, that this was all fake, that these people were never real, that this world was destined to be broken, that we're no god, and that we have no power, that there is in fact no hope, that there is in fact no second chance. It breaks Niko, and because of that, it breaks you, and it's crushing to have to go through. And you might wonder, what's even the point of all this anymore? Is there even any hope? I've mentioned a couple of times at this point that Niko is a great character, and this is easily where you see them at their deepest, at their most conflicted. That cheery, bright-eyed child from earlier, now scarred and hopeless because they know that nothing they do here really matters, no matter what they do. That they're still trapped in this endless looping cycle where nothing is really real, yet these people still count on them. Their fates all depend on Niko, who's stuck between a quote-unquote god who's powerless to do anything and a sadistic, unseen, all-powerful entity that's bent on destroying itself and everything within it. One that can't be bargained with, can't be pleaded with, one that cannot be changed. And that's what sucks about all of this, isn't it? The world here, it's clearly doomed. Any chance at a good ending has long been forgotten, and there doesn't seem to be any real chance at fixing that. At securing a future for its people, at getting Niko back home, at ever ending up happy. And boy, can I say I certainly know right how that feels, and in a lot of different ways. As far back as I can remember, I've always been fascinated just by how video games worked, what made the good ones good and the bad ones bad, how they were made, and I attribute that to a lot of the games I played in my early childhood, to Mario Advance, to Lego Batman, to the Sonic trilogy, to the Mario and Luigi RPGs, those kinds of things. And gosh, I always thought that'd be the coolest thing in the world, to try and make my own games, my own little worlds, you know?
But there was always this gripping fear, this insecurity that I could just never get rid of that came with that. I mean, I didn't know how to make any of this stuff. God's sakes, I was just a kid when I was a child, and it's like, nobody ever made a game by themselves or with a small team that left such a huge impact or anything, so it was like, what was the point? And that was a pretty consistent thought pattern I had for several years until I remembered, oh yeah, indie games exist.
Set the stage in your head. It's mid-2019, like 6+ years ago now, and I'm a 13-year-old who just played Deltarune, and I decide, hell yeah, man, I'm gonna try to make a game. Why can't I? What in the world's stopping me? After all, there have been so many games created by small groups of developers that lived up to such high heights and changed so many people, and I went far down the rabbit hole, so of course I'd later played Deltarune's Divorce Step prequel-in-law and Undertale, little-known game, you may have heard of it, maybe not, I don't know. Then Shovel Knight, just a brilliant throwback to classic platforming platformers, and I can't forget Hollow Knight or Cuphead, two stylish and addictive 2D titles that I think speak for themselves. Or Omori, which I genuinely think might be the best storytelling experience in pretty much any game I have ever played. It's a game I have a really unhealthy relationship with, and it's one of the two great RPG Maker indie games about a deeply layered protagonist and their relationship with a special light bulb, and I think that is pretty cool. Or Celeste, which is probably my favorite game ever. I think I'm always going to give that regard to Super Paper Mario. I have to. Just because that one has everything I want to see in a game. It shaped everything I want to see in a game. But if I was stranded on a desert island and I could only ever play one game again for the rest of my life, it'd honestly have to be Celeste. It's the one game I don't think I could ever get sick of playing over and over and over again. Ever. And all of this, among so many other enriching experiences, I just completely fell head over heels for this whole sort of genre of game. But here's the thing. When you're breathing in all these high-level modern classics, and you're hoping, you're planning, you're trying your damnedest to make one of your own one day, that paralyzes you. Or at least it did me. There was this ever-present panic of not being good enough, of not being able to live up to this huge standard I set for myself, and I'll be honest, goddammit, it's only gotten worse over time. This is something I fight with tooth and nail to the death every single day of my life. But again, this was 2019, 2020, 2021, that time frame close to 5 years ago now, and what have I done with my time since then?
I've set goals for myself. I had originally wanted a game to release by 2023 at one point. It was a personal goal. It was personal. I wanted to make a game that would release on the consoles that primarily I grew up with, stuff like the Nintendo Switch and the PS4. Something that I could stick on my shelf with the rest of those consoles' legendary libraries, with the works that meant so much to me, that could hopefully mean something to somebody one day and say, this belongs here, this deserves it, I deserve it. It was personal, but that was realistically never gonna happen. I mean, I was smack dab in the middle of the worst mental crisis of my entire life at that point, so instead, I set a new goal. I wanted a game to release in the big year of 2025. I mean, even though we didn't really know it at the time, the Switch 2 was coming out that year. We all knew it. And to me, that marked a new generation, that signaled a new beginning. I saw so much potential for that, and outside of that, 2025 was shaping up to be kind of a shitty year given the state of things going on. Given the horrifically fascist state my country is in right now, the very place I predicted it crumbling into all those years ago. It feels silly to say out loud, but it felt like now was the most important time for me to play my part, to do what little I could to not comply, to do something important that some people could find solace in, that people would enjoy, to speak my piece, to make something, to do something important as my country becomes a scarier, darker place for people who don't look like me, for people who don't have the same privileges that I do, even for people like me that don't kiss the ring and feed into the bullshit ideologies and religions we're fed. But obviously, that fell through also, and for the same reasons I said earlier, I spent days, months, just trying to learn, to accomplish the most basic things, and thinking about it realistically, I had this idea of very noble intentions of doing something great people could care about, but how noble really were those intentions? How much did this really matter at the end of the day? Nothing would change, it wouldn't matter, nobody would care. And all of that held me down, and for obvious reasons, so just like before, I had failed.
I'm at the point now where I don't want to make something just for the sake of making something anymore. I have an actual story to tell. I have a world to build, a style of gameplay I want to implement. But I mean, at this point, we're looking at, I don't know, maybe 2028, 2029, 2027 if I'm really, really lucky. And God, outside of this, outside of my unhinged, obsessive dedication to this project, I'm nothing. I have nothing. This is all I have, all I do outside of my stinking dead-end retail job that's ruining my life even more. And I can never clear this project, this duty from my mind. It's all I live for, and it's hard sometimes, man.
Honestly, when you're working at something, the same thing, trying to make the same thing work for so long, it does get hopeless after a while. After all, how could it not? You've barely made any progress, you're stuck, you've wasted all this time, and all for what? You started an LLC with no actual products to sell, and you're wasting tons of money on it each and every month, which is a universal human experience everyone can relate to. to. And yet still, at the end of all of that, you still have nothing to show for it. And it gets to the point where you start to wonder, what is the point? Do second chances even exist? And do I deserve one? A third chance? Something more? You begin to think, I've used up every chance I've gotten, and I've made nothing with it. So what even is the point anymore? And that's what I love so much about OneShot's meta-narrative, because it asks what is real, and it asks what does matter, and I find all of that to be truly captivating.
It raises a lot of questions about reality, about life, about free will, and if it even exists to begin with. This is a really deeply beautiful and compelling meta-narrative, and it showcases all the things that make gaming gaming, the things that make gaming special. It's a story that can only be told in this specific artistic medium, and I sincerely find a ton of value in that. But that's where the differences in the Solstice path start to come into play. Everything that takes place within OneShot is fixed in advance by the world machine. It's all set in stone, except slowly but surely, things that aren't supposed to happen start happening. Like, Niko meets up with the author's 3 children, which was never something the world machine planned, anticipated. The friends you and Niko made throughout your quest begin making their own choices to help you endure this unplanned path. And this confuses, this terrifies the world machine, which just further thrusts this world into devastation and chaos. And this is all tied together by the very concept of taming. It's something that's brought up a lot in your first playthrough, but it's never really explored, much less explained. That is until you dig deeper into the Solstice route. You learn that taming is essentially the process of giving humanity and nature to synthetic life. If a person spends time with a robot and treats it as if it is a person, then that robot becomes tamed. They become their own person. Yeah, so this requires a lot of suspension of disbelief, because the game really devotes itself to having the strict meta-narrative, yet we know that these lines of code that are presented as characters, even Niko themselves, aren't real, they're not people, but I think that adds even more to the underlying story of this game.
See, I've noticed that a lot of people seem to think that the point of OneShot is that machines are people, that robots are people. All you gotta do is just treat them with humanity. It's like, no, it's never been the point. In reality, that doesn't make any sense at all. No, the point isn't that these robots are people. The point isn't that these machines are people. The point is that these people are people. That even if they're just mere simulations being copied by the world machines, their humanity still shines through at the end of the day, and that is what matters here.
Niko ultimately realizes that the people of this world are real, that their stories and their decisions do matter, and succeeds in doing what the entirety of this game was really leading to. It's not about restoring the sun, it's not about bringing Niko home, it's not about a choice, it's not about making your one and only shot count. It's about taming the world machine, about convincing it that we don't just have one shot, that second chances, as unlikely as they may seem, as out of reach as they may always appear to be, are indeed possible to attain, that new beginnings can happen if you pursue them, if you make them happen against all odds, that a second chance truly is a worthwhile possibility for Niko, for the people of this world, for the world machine itself, and in a meta way, for OneShot as a whole, and for us, for the player, because that's what we're doing by playing this game, by becoming attached to it, by committing our time and committing our souls to this world. We are taming the world machine. We are giving it the humanity it needed to operate from the beginning, the humanity it needed to be a full world, unplagued by these coding errors that caused it to deteriorate into the mere scraps it became in the first place, and it works. In the end, the world machine provides us with a satisfying ending wherein both the world is restored and Niko gets to go home, where the author's goal of preserving this world truly played out, even if it was in a different way than he originally intended. This world will live on, in our memory, as said by the world machine itself. To Niko, this world will live on as a dream, like thousands of other dreams, and to us, as a story, like thousands of other stories. I don't know, man, that's just the layered storytelling I love to see in gaming, and in all fiction generally. Within the kayfabe of this world, so to speak, it's really up to you to decide your own interpretation. Is there in any way actually a realness to this world and to these people? Now that we're done with this game, will these characters within its own fictional little world continue to live on now that we, that Niko, that the world machine have served our purposes? You can make good arguments for both sides, for yes and for no, but to me, the answer obviously is Yes, they will, because that's the whole point of the game. Because that's what everything sets up throughout all of OneShot. That this world and its people deserve a second chance at survival, at life, just like we do. And oh my god, like I said, this whole thing works so much because of the connection you build with Niko. When Niko's happy, you're happy. When Niko's scared, you're scared. And when Niko's demoralized, you feel demoralized. And when your journey ends the second time, the real time that is, and it's time for the both of you to go your own separate ways for good, it genuinely feels like the bittersweet ending of a real, actual friendship, which is mind-bustingly crazy considering it's a character who looks like this of all things. And all in all, the level of immersion this all works together to form is crazy, and maybe it's because they talk directly to us, but I've rarely ever seen a main protagonist in a game feel anywhere near as real or tangible as Niko does. And I can't overstate that as much as I may try. Yeah, I really like OneShot. It's a great game. Masterpiece. 7 out of 8 nuggets.
You and I have had our disagreements before, but trust me on this one. OneShot's great and you should play it. It's only like $10 and it's worth every single goddamn penny of that $10. And while you're at it, you should keep your eyes open for updates on Night Margin's next game, Margin of the Strange, which looks super cool. It's like the two great indie RPG Maker games about a deeply layered protagonist and their relationship with a special light bulb had a kid somehow. Oh, and also Skyless Blind, which is being made by Margin of the Strange's pixel environmental artist Near. You won't regret it unless you're a dumb, stupid weirdo who hates good art and prefers those terrible, soulless AI-generated cartoon movies or something, which in that case you suck and I hate you and your parents probably regret ever committing the unforgivable crime of birthing you into our sad little world in the first place. And on that note, Night Margin also got to make some music for the recent Off remaster with some annoying dog guy, which is really neat. That was a game that played a big part in inspiring OneShot, so to see things go full circle that way is really inspiring. No joke, the creators of OneShot and Undertale teaming up to make something is like, it's just crazy to me. It's like, oh my god, what if my parents fucked?
In the meantime, yeah, life sucks a lot. Yeah, well, I often find myself consumed by my own lame problems for obvious me being me reasons. I know you've got your own struggles, and it's important to remember that it's inevitable. You're gonna fuck things up magnificently like the stupid, pathetic loser you are, and sometimes you're gonna need a second, third, fourth, 12th chance to get something right, and it's perfectly okay to take your time and take those chances. OneShot, in every conceivable way, both in its content and its real-life story, is tangible proof of that.
OneShot's a game that means a lot, that represents a lot to me. Like, sure, it's no George Foreman's KO boxing, but not every game can be. That's a hell of a lot to ask. But its focus on puzzle and exploration instead of forcing in some generic battle mode speaks to so much genuinity at its core. I don't know. I just love everything about OneShot. It's my kind of game. It's my bread and butter, which kind of sucks because I can't eat gluten, but that's not the point. Games like this are kind of what kickstarted my whole descent into madness. My journey into making my own game, which might not suck total aardvark bottles, who knows, so I feel like I owe games like this a hell of a lot. Seeing OneShot make it to the place it's at right now is just really inspiring to me, and it reminds me, maybe if I keep working, maybe if I do everything I can, that maybe I too can have a second chance. Nah, it's not in the cards for me.